The night gathered gently over Kono like a blue wrapper, stitched with stubborn stars. In the courtyard behind the mud brick house, a kerosene lamp hissed a steady sigh, and moths circled its little sun. Amara cupped an enamel cup with both palms, warming her fingers on the sweet yeasty heat of fresh palm wine. Pollo tapped that afternoon from a tall raffia, still humming with the sap of daylight. Musa sat opposite, dust from the farm still brushed into the ridges of his knuckles, his smile soft and steady like a drumbeat you could step into. Between them, a low table, a chipped thermos, cassava cakes cooling, the day's small harvest of groundnuts. The scent of wood smoke threaded everything. "Howdy, Bodie?" Musa teased, leaning back until his chair creaked. "Ah, day fine," Amara answered, smile tugging. "Fine pass fine." They had learned each other in these hours after work, when the world loosened and the sweat dried, when the soft glow made every secret possible. The rice paddies still glimmered in memory, flat mirrors catching the last light as they left, and the tiny frog's song reached them here, a far-off, bright chatter. Amara's mother sang in the kitchen, a tune she never finished, and Musa matched it, humming under his breath. In the lamplight, his eyelashes cast crescent shadows. She took a slow sip of pollo and closed her eyes to taste it, sweet, sour, alive, then opened them to find Musa watching her like a promise. "Tomorrow we weed the far ridge," he said. Small we go finish before rains come full." Amara nodded. "We fit duam. We strong." Their talk was always practical first, rose seed season, because the land asked for that truth. Yet just under the surface were other truths: how Musa's hand had brushed her wrist when he passed the thermos, that shock like a spark, how she'd saved 2 cola nuts to bring him and then forgot, too shy to make a ceremony of it. The future sat with them, invisible but not unfelt. Footsteps scuffed at the yard entrance, and the evening grew a crisp edge. Musa's father, Pa Sori, ducked into the lamplight with 2 men Amara had never seen before. Their boots looked expensive and rude in the neatly swept yard. Their shirts, stiff with foreignness, gleamed too white for night. One carried a folder that coughed paper when he opened it. The other stood with his hands in his pockets, a tin smile floating on his face. "Good evening, small ones," the folder man said, his Creole precise as if measured. "We nor go take time. We come for discuss opportunity." Amara set her cup down carefully. Musa's shoulders straightened. His father's mouth did that tight thing it did when he was trying to be hopeful and stern at once. The men were from the mining company. Everyone had heard they were combing the valleys again, chasing the idea of diamonds like men who'd misplaced their souls. They spoke of leases and livelihoods, of community development, of new wells and a clinic. They said the valley where Musa's family farmed, the rich bend of earth along the shallow creek, would be better put to digging than planting. They said compensation and jobs. They said progress as if it were a prayer. Musa did not interrupt. He watched his father's face, the way the numbers on the sheet reflected in Pa Sori's eyes. School fees for Musa's little sisters, roofing iron, a motorbike to carry produce to market, time, ease, relief. Amara felt the ground tilt even before anyone agreed to anything. She could see, too, a new road carved where the palm fronds swayed now, see earth turned into wounds, see water running brown and sullen. "Make we think, Pa Sori said finally. "Dis kind Torai nor did decide under lamp in one night." The men nodded as if they had invented patience. They left behind a business card like a seed you didn't mean to swallow. The kerosene lamp sighed again and the moths returned to their orbit. Musa reached for his cup and missed. His hand hovered in the air, and Amara took it without thinking, threading her fingers through his. Their palms were calloused and real. "We go hold," she whispered, though her voice carried its tremor. "Now we place. Now we night." He looked at her, and something in his eyes steadied. "Ah, day with you," he said. "Any road we choose, we go walk together." The frogs sang louder, a green chorus. His thumb traced the curve of her hand and warmth spread like dawn in her chest. They leaned toward each other as if the lamp itself had breathed them closer. The kiss, when it came, was soft, careful, like stepping onto a new bridge and feeling it hold. They stayed close, forehead to forehead, listening to their 2 breaths becoming one ribbon in the dark, letting the quiet say the rest. Above them, the stars were unbothered. But along the valley, the wind moved through the palms with a restless sound Amara had not noticed before. Morning brought market noise and the lilt of laughter, the clack of pestle on mortar, the bright quarrel of roosters. Yet for Amara the day felt sketched, like a charcoal drawing waiting for color. Out in the field, she and Musa moved in rhythm. Step, pole, toss. The weed roots came free with a wet pop. Damp earth perfumed the air. Sweat ran a shining path down Musa's temple, and Amara wanted to wipe it away and couldn't, not with the two aunties watching from the shade, not with the heaviness of last night folded between them like a letter. At midday Pasori joined them under the mango. He had the company's paper in his hand, and the son glanced off it sharply. "Dem say dis number na final," he said, tapping the figure with a finger that trembled. "Dem promise job for you, Musa. Security first, then training. And dem go build borehole for community." "A borehole nor go plant rice," one auntie muttered, but soft. Musa took the sheet without looking at the number and stared instead at the border, where the logo sat, curving like a wave swallowing a hill. "How long dem go dig?" he asked. "How many season we nor go get back?" 5-year lease, plus extension if needed, Pasori said carefully. "But money big. You mama nor go bend so much for rice again." The word money felt like a drumbeat coming from the wrong direction. Amara thought of her mother's back, yes, of her own bare feet at dawn, of school fees, of the dream she rarely admitted, that she might someday run a tiny reading room by the road with a blue-painted door, a place where children came after farm to open pages like windows. Where would that door stand if the road itself shifted? Her eyes burned. She blinked it away. They ate under the mango, sweet threads catching in their teeth. The world continued being beautiful, stubbornly. After, Musa walked Amara to the palaver hut where a meeting would be called. On the path, he reached for her hand late as if asking permission to hope. "If I take the job," he said, words rubbing rough against each other, "I go fit save. I go fit do big things. Maybe I fit make life soft for we faster. And if the water turn brown?" The question surprised her, it came out like a bird. "If de dust nor settle? If de songs we sing now nor get place to sit?" He stopped. The breeze stirred the edge of her headscarf, lifting a corner like a page someone longed to read. His face was open, wounded with wanting two worlds at once, for his family's rest and for their valley's quiet heart. "Ah nor one lose dis," he said, voice low. "Yo, dis yard, dis lamp. But sometimes opportunity knock like police. It nor to wait for you to finish your food." She laughed despite herself, leaning her shoulder into his arm. "You and your proverb." Then softer, "We go choose well. Nor rush because number big and paper white." At the palaver hut, elders filtered in, their slippers whispering. Children ran the perimeter like birds around a pond. A young man from the company arrived with a flip chart and a smile that showed neat teeth and not much else. He spoke about corporate responsibility. The flip chart promised sunlight, a school block, reflective vests, a future where everyone held a shovel and grinned. The village headman asked careful questions. The oldest grandmother asked an impolite one, and the young man sidestepped it like a puddle. When the meeting adjourned, nothing had been decided, but something had shifted. Promises had weight. Numbers had rhythm. People were humming the tune under their breath. Amara walked out into the afternoon and found Musa waiting by the breadfruit tree. They leaned close as always, secrets finding the seams between their words. "Tonight," he said. "Under lamp. We go talk true. You heart na my compass." "Then hear him now," she answered, fierce in the small space between them. "I love you. Nor make decision way go scatter we just because paper shine." The words, once spoken, settled like a heavy, ripe basket in her arms. His eyes went bright, and for a moment the wind carried the scent of fermenting palm sap from a distant calabash, sweet and familiar. He took her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, reverent. "I go hold we first," he said. "Any choice I make, now with you name inside." The promise fitted between them like a new step in a dance they already knew by heart. That night, the lamp would burn softer, and the moths would test the light with tender wings. Between sips of pollo, they would draw their future in the dust, two lines that refused to pull apart. The surveyors arrived like a rumor you could touch, bright vests, long poles, a machine that spun slowly on a tripod, red flags tucked in a bundle under one arm like a bouquet of warnings. They laughed too loudly like men who had practiced sounding friendly. The dogs barked and then got bored and lay down with their jaws on their paws. Children pointed at the spinning machine and mimicked its whir with their lips. Amara watched from the edge of the field, hands buried in a basket of groundnuts though she had stopped sorting them. Musa strode down the incline to meet the men. She saw in him then the bravery she had first fallen in love with, the way he squared his shoulders against anything new, not pretending to be bigger than he was, just refusing to be smaller. They spoke in the middle of the paddy and the wind carried broken syllables. Boundary, lease line, no blasting here, temporary. One surveyor planted a red flag at the bend where Musa's little sister splashed every harmattan, where the water wore a shallow smile. The sight made Amara dizzy. By late afternoon, the flags had multiplied like stubborn flowers. Each one seemed to lift its head and shout that the map on the paper could indeed colonize the live earth. Amara took a breath that didn't sit well in her chest. She walked to where Musa stood by the creek, his reflection snagged among the reeds. He didn't look away from the water. "Dem say the first phase na exploratory," he said. "No heavy machines yet. Dem go test soil. After that, if mineral content strong, dem go bring bigger plan, bigger money." "And if dem decide yes?" she asked, though she already knew the shape of the answer. "Then we valley go get road noise work?" He stopped, jaw flexing. "And scars." Silence unfurled between them, not angry, just immense. She put the basket down and slid her hand into his, palms fitting like they had been made as a set. They stood like that until the frogs remembered to sing again and the evening softened the light. The kerosene lamp would be waiting at home, but they lingered by the creek as if it were the last evening the water would keep their secrets without telling. Later, under the lamp's tender circle, they talked. Not with the fear that chased you in circles, but with the careful honesty that built a room you could live in. He told her about his father's tired cough in the mornings and the way his mother's wrists ached after pounding cassava. She told him about the little blue door she dreamed of and the rows of dog-eared books she could almost smell, the chalk dust on her palms. "What if we make a plan inside the bigger plan?" Musa said finally. "If I take the job for season 1, just the security training, say fast, then we use that money to start your reading room by the road before any heavy machine come?" Amara stared at him, at the way he had taken his own fear and folded it into a gift. "And if the heavy machines come quicker than we think? If we start to build and the ground become noise?" She swallowed. "But, even so, the dream get legs if we give 'em feet, nor so?" He laughed quietly, relief sliding into the sound. "Nor so." Then he leaned forward, and the kiss was deeper this time, still careful, still gentle, but edged with the fierce hope that grows when you both look at the same horizon and whisper the same name. His hands stayed respectful, resting at her waist. Hers traced the line of his shoulder, feeling the muscle and the promise in it. When they pulled apart, their foreheads rested together, and they breathed in time, the lamplight trembling faintly as if moved by their nearness. "Whatever come," he said, voice rough with vow. "I go be your lamp if night grow too wide. And I go be your river if dust try to choke," she answered. Their laughter braided the vows, and for a precious stretch of minutes, the flags beyond the dark were only rumors again. Word traveled faster than morning crows. The company had sent crates of soft drinks and a soccer ball, and the headman's nephew had been offered a scholarship. Some men nodded with pursed lips. Some women narrowed their eyes and sharpened their voices like knives on stone. On Friday, the women gathered with basin drums and ululation and a stubborn song that remembered older kinds of theft. Amara went with her mother, tying a bright Gara scarf around her head, heart rolling like a calabash in river water. They sang by the creek first, then at the junction, then under the palaver hut, moving like a river that wouldn't be rerouted. The lyrics were old and new together. "Nor sell we sky," one verse said, and the next, "water nor do wear chain." Musa stood at the edge, his eyes liquid with pride and worry, clapping time. When Amara's gaze found him, the rhythm inside her steadied. The surveyors watched from a distance, hands on hips. One filmed on his phone. The women sang louder, the sound a net they cast over the day, gathering courage into their arms. By evening, the sky threatened rain. The lamp in Amara's yard struggled before catching, and the hiss sounded like a blessing. Musa came, his hair damp with mist, his smile soft and serious. They ate cassava leaf stew with rice and shared a calabash of pollo, passing it back and forth like a secret. Rain began, a careful tapping that softened all the edges of the world. They were alone in the outer room, the sound of their mother's chit-chatting from the kitchen like a low drum. "You lead song today," Musa said. "I feel him inside bone." Amara shrugged, shy and proud at once. "We small but we can make plenty noise." He reached for her hand, turned her palm up, traced a line from wrist to fingertip as if reading a story written there. The rain gave them a veil. The lamp drew them into a warm island. When he leaned in, she met him halfway. The kiss tasted faintly of palm and spice. His breath carried the good sweat of work and the sweetness of the wine. Their lips parted and met again, a conversation without words, hungry and reverent, slow enough to feel each bloom of sensation, careful enough to honor the boundary their faith and families and their own tenderness asked them to keep. His forehead rested against hers between kisses, and he whispered small foolish things that made her laugh into his mouth. They stopped before they would need to pull themselves back hard. They knew how to stand on the shore and let the tide curl around their ankles, promising the ocean without drowning the day. His hand slid to her shoulders, warm and steady. She laid her cheek against his chest, listened to his heart, an honest drum. "Dem asked me to sign form for training," he said at last into her hair. Monday morning. She closed her eyes, felt the tilt of the world again, then found her own center in the circle of his arms. "If you go," she said, "go as man who know where he come out. Nor let dem tell you your name. Carry we song inside ear." He laughed softly against her. "Carry we song? You na poet." "Now you make me so," she said, and they smiled, the rain stitching the moment into memory. Outside, the flags lifted and fell in the wind like a restless congregation. Inside, under the faithful hiss of the lamp, they set a little plan on the table between them. A notebook, names of children who might come to read, a square of corrugated iron someone's uncle might donate, a blue door Musa promised to carve. Hope can be an act of refusal too. Monday rose damp and shy. The silk cotton tree at the village edge threw an enormous shadow, and beneath it, a crowd gathered. The company had brought a portable speaker and a roll-up banner with pictures of smiling workers and shiny helmets. The headman's stool looked heavier than usual. Chickens pecked around the outer ring of the meeting, unbothered by human decisions. Amara stood with the women, a thin line of red cloth tied around each of their wrists, a quiet sign of unity. Musa stood closer to the front with his father, shoulder to shoulder in that particular intimacy that comes when a son is almost a man and a father is almost ready to let the world teach him the rest. The company representative spoke about partnership and transparency. The headman spoke about the needs of the village. Numbers were said. More numbers followed, like the roll of a river in flood. Then the oldest grandmother stood without being invited. Her back curved like a question mark, but her voice carried. "When we dig," she said, "we must ask what we bury. If you give we one clinic and take we 3 clean streams, na business we do nor charity." Laughter scattered and then settled into a murmur of respect. The representative adjusted his smile. Musa's eyes flickered to Amara, and she lifted her chin the way she did when she wanted him to be brave. Questions, answers, promises. At last, the headman announced, a committee would be formed to negotiate terms, to insist on water protections, to ensure jobs went first to local hands. Musa's name went onto the list as youth representative before he could object. Amara felt pride snag at fear, then tie a new knot. He would be in the room where the shape of their valley could be redrawn, and she trusted his pen. After, people dispersed into smaller arguments, the way rain disperses into rivulets and then somehow ends up in the same river. Musa found Amara under the silk cotton's broad arms. The light dappled his face. The breeze smelled like damp bark and the sour-sweet breath of pollo fermenting far away. "Ah, nor sign yet," he said without preamble. "I tell dem say I go start training only if water protection na first clause. If dem nor agree, make dem carry dem helmet go." Amara blinked. Then her laughter burst out, bright and crystalline. She put both hands on his cheeks, openly, scandalously, in public, and pulled his face to hers for a quick kiss, so fast the Andes only had time to gasp, not scold. "You stubborn pass goat," she said, eyes shining. "And I'll love you for am." He grinned, dizzy with it, dizzy with her. "We stubborn together," he said. They walked back toward the houses, arms brushing, talking logistics as if logistics were love, which between them they were the blue door, the shelf Musa could build from the old mango crate, the window screen so dust would not settle on the pages. He would start training next week if the clause held. She would visit the head teacher to ask for worn textbooks. They would still come to the lamp every evening, still share pollo, still kiss carefully as if their breath could light the world. Behind them, the red flags flickered in the wind like warning and like witness. Before them, a path unspooled, muddy and sure. Somewhere in the middle distance, a child laughed, a rooster crowed late, and a frog leaped into brown water with a sound like a period at the end of a long, complicated sentence. "Small, small," Musa said, squeezing her fingers. "Small, small," Amara echoed, and they went shoulder to shoulder into whatever the valley would become. The committee met in a borrowed classroom that smelled like chalk and rain-damp uniforms. On the blackboard, someone had written 3 words in wide, careful letters. Water first, jobs second. A lizard clicked along the sill, small metronome to the day. Musa sat beside 2 elders and the headman. Across from them, the company's team laid out folders, a laptop, a tumbler of imported water beating sweat in the heat. Amara occupied the back row with 2 other women who had been sewing banners for the protests. She'd come with a notebook, a coil of blue thread around her wrist like a reminder. We propose buffer zones, the company liaison began, tapping a diagram where the creek wound a thin silver line. 50 meters from all active watercourses. Independent testing, monthly. Weekly, Musa said. He spoke without raising his voice, but the word had weight. And the testing nor for Biuna alone. The community go choose 2 monitors. Una go fund am. The liaison's smile tightened, then smoothed. We can consider co-monitoring. Nor consider, one elder murmured. Commit. Papers shuffled. The acoustics of the bare room turned every page into a small storm. When Musa glanced back, Amara lifted her chin and traced a tiny circle on her page, the sketch of a door. He breathed easier. They were building 2 things at once, a clause to guard a river and a door to guard a future. At noon the head teacher popped in and, seeing Amara, beckoned. She stepped outside to a corridor of flaking paint and schoolchildren's laughter. You come about books? He asked. Library got hand-me-downs from Freetown. Plenty worn, but stories nor tire. Her heart jumped. Not the exact kind we need, she said. The ones already loved. He unlocked a storeroom and the smell of paper rose like a blessing. Amara ran her fingers over cracked spines, folktales and science primers, old exam prep, a picture book with the sea painted in the blue of a dream. She swallowed, thinking of the blue door Musa had promised to carve, the one she'd imagined in the dust last night beneath the lamplight. You get somewhere safe? The head teacher said, handing her 2 boxes tied with string. Soon, she answered, grinning. We go paint you proud. Back in the classroom, tempers had warmed with the day. Independent grievance mechanism, the liaison was saying carefully, with timelines for response. And penalties, Musa added. If Una fail benchmark, Una slow. If Una hide spill, Una stop. Right am. The headman nodded, pleased. Amara slid into her seat, the blue thread cool against her skin. The boxes of books waited in the corridor like a promise with weight. By evening, a draft existed. Weekly water tests, 2 community monitors paid by the company but selected by the village, a 100-meter no-go buffer around the creek until rainy season passed, a fund for filters, a clinic stipend, jobs earmarked for local youth with safety training first. No signatures yet, only wet thumbprints of intention pressing through the paper. Walking home, Musa caught Amara's hand, the corridor's last light draping them in gold. Blue door, he said, breathless as a boy. Saturday I go carve the frame. Pa Lemon get offcuts from his carpentry shop. We go make shelves from dem mango crates. Amara laughed and the sound felt like a key turning. I went to the storeroom. We get books. She watched his face change, surprise, pride, a fierce tenderness that made something soft and determined rise in her chest. Stories nor tire, she whispered. Under the kerosene lamp that night, they spread a pencil floor plan. Their fingers brushed, their shoulders leaned until the space between them disappeared. The intimacy grew, not wild but attentive, like careful weeding around a precious plant. She traced his jaw with the back of her hand. He kissed her palm as if thanking it for all the work it had done. Their mouths met, slow, deliberate, language and vow, the lamps hiss a steady choir. When they parted, the room felt larger, as if the door they were building had already let wind through. Tomorrow, Musa said, resting his forehead against hers, I go bring plank. After training we go sand. After sanding we go paint. What color? She asked, though they both knew. Blue way look like sea in school uniform Mary, he said, grinning. Blue way tell Pekin enter learn. Her laughter lived in his mouth when he kissed her again, reverent and sure. Outside, frogs sang and a night bird called. Inside, 2 futures, river and reading room, set their posts, and the house of hope pressed upright against the dark. Training began the way new things do in places where old things have roots. Awkwardly, earnestly. The company's safety officer, a compact woman with steel in her posture, gathered the youth trainees beneath a tin awning and spoke of helmets, boots, ear protection, and the right to refuse unsafe work. Musa listened, memorizing each sentence as if it were a path through unfamiliar bush. He signed the attendance sheet only after confirming the clause drafts were circulating with the water first demands intact. At lunch, he slipped away to the creek where 2 men from a local NGO, Water Watch, were waiting with kits, plastic bottles, reagent drops, filters like little moons. They shook his hand with palms that smelled faintly of iodine and river weed. We go teach Una D river im language, one said in Creole. So if anybody try for lie for am, D water go talk through Una. The procedure enchanted Musa. Fill to the line. Add 3 drops. Shake. Wait for the color to bloom. Record the number. He crouched at the bank where his sisters used to splash, let the bottle fill steady, no bubbles as taught. The water's clarity today was like a glass prayer. He capped, shook, set it down. The reagent bled blue-green. Dissolved oxygen good, the NGO man nodded. We go track him weekly. If it drops sudden we ask why. He felt a quiet power settle in his bones. Knowledge as tool, vigilance as love. He took a selfie with the kit, his first, and sent it to Amara via Bluetooth later, shy as a secret. She replied with a photo of her palms smudged blue where she tested paint on a scrap of wood. Blue door dawn begin, she texted. He grinned until his cheeks hurt. Evenings became a liturgy of making. After the safety drills, how to lift, how to step away, how to speak up, Musa ran to Palaman's shop. Sawdust swirled like incense. Together they planed planks, measuring twice, cutting once, the blade singing through grain. Squirrels scolded from the mango. Amara arrived with a kettle of ginger tea and bread. She sanded the edges smooth, her arm moving in patient circles until the wood grew soft under her hands. Sometimes their parents watched from a bench, pretending not to be moved. Sometimes neighborhood children gathered, wide-eyed, and Amara would press a dusty primer into a small pair of hands, telling the story of a tortoise who thought he could trick the sun. When the little one's laughter burst out, Musa felt his own lungs expand to hold it. They carried the frame home and propped it against the half-wall they'd claimed beside the road. Saturday they hoisted it, squared it, shimmed it until it stood true. Amara stepped back and covered her mouth. The unpainted door was just wood and nails and sweat, but it also wasn't. It was a declaration, a sentence beginning with a capital letter. Paint, Musa said, eager as a drum. He opened the tin and stirred. The blue deepened, a lagoon taking a breath. Together they laid the first coat, brush by brush. The sun slid down and the door drank the light, growing luminous even in shade. When they paused, their fingers and forearms were freckled blue like someone had sprinkled the sky on their skin. They washed at the pump, laughing when the water ran turquoise for a moment, then clear. Under the lamp, their faces still carried tiny blue comets. Musa touched one comet on Amara's cheek and followed it with his lips. The kiss began playful, edged into a sweetness that tugged low in both their bellies, then settled, by choice, into a long embrace. He held her the way you hold good news before you share it. She breathed against his neck, the warm closeness and honest fire on a cool night. You learning plenty, she murmured. How to listen to water. How to say, no, with helmet on. And you, he whispered back. You learning how to make a door out of nothing but stubborn hope. Not nothing, she said. Hope and you. The lamp's halo cradled them. Outside it, flags still fretted in a wind they chose not to hear for this 1 hour. Inside it, breath and paint smelled like a new chapter. River collected, book scented, lamp warmed, and they read each other in that language until sleep sent them gentle and sure toward morning. The first real test arrived disguised as weather. Clouds stacked over the hills like cattle penned too tight. By afternoon, thunder walked the horizon. The company had begun exploratory trenching upslope, a phrase that sounded lighter than the machines it required. Musa checked his kit twice, then a third time, and texted Waterwatch, "Rain go come. We ready." It broke at dusk, rain with fists. Zinc roofs drummed, the sound turning conversation into mime. Gutters gushed. Children squealed, sprinting to rescue basins. Amara pulled the blue door shut and bolted it, a new action that felt ceremonial. She watched rivulets braid down the road, the surface a scribble of silver. Half an hour in, the creek shouted. Not sang, shouted. Musa grabbed his boots and ran, rain flattening his shirt to his back. At the bank, the water had swollen chocolate, opaque as secrets. He felt his chest go cold. He crouched, filled the bottle, capped, shook. The reagent stayed a sulking gray. Turbidity high, he muttered. The dissolved oxygen reading dipped. He logged, filmed, panned upslope. The runoff poured from a scar the machines had opened, silt rushing like an insult. Amara arrived with a headscarf tight against the downpour, breath quick. She didn't scold him for being out. She stood at his shoulder and stared at the creek's changed face. We sabi dis color, she said, anger threaded with grief. This na di color we see when dem wash gravel for diamond. Musa texted the liaison and the headman. Emergency. Creek brown. Come see. He sent the video. The reply came fast, on our way, and slower, probably natural silt from heavy rainfall. He didn't argue by text. He collected a second sample downstream, then asked Amara to hold the phone while he set up a makeshift filter demonstration. The same one Waterwatch had done for them with a cloth, a bottle, and patience. Brown in the top. Clearer below. Silt settling like a lie after the noise. By the time the company truck arrived, the rain had softened to a steady hiss. The liaison stepped out in a poncho, face arranged in concern. "Heavy rain," he said. "Unfortunate timing." Musa showed him the trench scar. He said nothing extra, no dramatics, just pointed where a temporary barrier had failed, where straw bales lay dislodged like careless promises. The liaison took pictures and made a call. "We'll fix," he said, jaw tight. "Tonight." "Fix nor go bring back what pass," Amara said. But una fit stop more from going. Lights bobbed up the slope, a small caravan of apology. Workers dragged new bales, staked silt fences deeper, dug channels to slow the runoff. The creek failed to clear that night. It did lighten by dawn. In the quiet middle hours, Musa and Amara returned to the blue door because you must return to the things that make you yourselves when the world tries to smudge you out. The lamp painted their faces in warm patience. Wet clothes hung on a line, dripping rhythm. They sat on the floor with their backs against the door, shoulders touching, the grain at their spines steadying. "I for vex past this," Musa said. "But I want vex with wisdom, nor with flame way go burn we own roof." Amara leaned into him. "Then let's make the anger work," she said. "We go call a town meeting. We go ask for independent rain season plan, stronger barriers, real-time alerts, person responsible. We go ask for clause way say if creek turn brown, machines rest 2 days." He nodded slowly. "You know my best committee," he whispered. He turned his head and kissed her temple, then her cheek. The kiss on her mouth came slow, mindful, a language he'd learned by listening. She answered with a tenderness that gathered all of him, the part that wanted to fight, the part that wanted to build, the boy and the man. His fingers locked with hers, their breathing found a shared tempo, and a warmth spread that had nothing to do with the lamp. They stopped when stopping honored the promise they'd made to themselves. Still close, they prayed in the simple way they'd learned as children, starting with gratitude, asking for good sense. The rain thinned to whispers. Outside, a generator coughed, then fell silent. Inside, the blue door was a quiet pulse. They rose, unlatched it, and looked out at the road rinsed clean under a sky that had spent its anger. The creek would clear. Their resolve would not. Morning after the brown rain, the village moved like a body waking from uneasy sleep. Women compared bucket water, holding it against the light as if reading fortunes. Children fished with sticks where the current slowed, reporting dead tadpoles with solemnity. The company's crew stood around the repaired barriers, serious, contrite. The headman measured, called for a review, today not next week. "When cow kick you, you nor wait for hoof to dry before you ask why," he said, which made even the liaison crack a rueful smile. Musa cleaned the lens of his mother's borrowed phone and set about assembling proof that a cousin in Freetown could forward to Waterwatch's lawyer. He filmed the slope from 3 angles. He filmed the silt fence, the pooling, the trench line that sliced like a careless signature. He filmed the creek upstream, clear as a hymn, and downstream, still tea-dark in eddies. Then he held the sample bottle, brown as last night's worry, and let the camera see how the sediment settled faintly even as he spoke. Amara, practical, stationed herself at the blue door with a ledger and a kettle. "If you see anything odd with D-water, come talk," she told passers-by. She noted complaints, logged times, poured ginger tea into enamel cups to loosen tongues and soothe them. Her ledger filled with careful handwriting and names. Patterns emerged. Eye irritation, a rash on a child's ankle, fish that rose once to the surface like thinking and then drifted on their sides. Midday brought a complication. Sori's cousin, Al-Haji, who had hired on as a security assistant 2 days ago and was walking taller for it, took Musa aside. "Close that camera small," he murmured. "Una don get claws. Nor antagonize D people way pay you salary." "My salary nor go by backwater," Musa said not unkindly. "If dem do well we go say am. If dem miss we go say am too." Al-Haji's gaze slipped toward the company tent. "Dem don warn say some youth to spoil relationship. I nor want see you lose chance. And I nor want see we Pekin dem lose creek," Musa answered. The love in his voice was not rhetorical, it was born from nights catching fireflies with his sisters and teaching them to cup them gently without breaking light. He put a hand on Al-Haji's arm. "Help us make it right. Now your job too." The review under the silk cotton tree had more edge than the last. The liaison began an apology which helped. Waterwatch representatives had come and spoke of standards, showing diagrams of proper drainage. An auntie, Amara's mother, asked for specificity, not adjectives. "Who na di person way go lose sleep if dis happen again?" she asked. Call I'm name. The name was given, a site engineer from Bo with careful eyes. He stepped forward without theatrics. If barrier fail na my shame, he said. Una get my number. If una call and I nor answer call my wife. If she nor answer come knock my zinc. Laughter broke a tension that needed breaking, and the headman wrote the number large on a piece of plywood and propped it against the tree like a commandment. New commitments were made on the spot, more straw bales trucked, extra hands hired to secure them, a WhatsApp group created for creek alerts, with Waterwatch, the headman and 2 youth, including Musa, as admins. If turbidity jumped above the agreed line, an automatic pause followed. No exceptions, rainy season or shine. After, Amara closed the blue door ledger and found her way to the creek where Musa stood in the shallows, trousers rolled, bottle in hand. She entered the water without hesitation. The current slid cool around their calves. A kingfisher flashed, blue on blue, bright as a confession. They listen today, she said. They listen because we nor shout only, we measure, he said half smiling. Water get a grammar. We learn am. She slid her hand into his. The intimacy of standing together in the creek, holding on, was deeper than any storm. He turned to her and kissed her in the hush of leaves, feather soft, then firmer, a lingering promise. The kiss was heat without hurry, closeness without crossing the line they had chosen. When they broke, foreheads resting together, they were both a little breathless, a little new. Tonight the door open? He asked, eyes bright. She nodded, dizzy with pride. We go read till lamp tire. They climbed out and walked back to the road, feet squelching, laughing at the squelch. Behind them, the creek smoothed itself like hair after a quarrel. Before them, the blue door shone under the late sun, and when they pulled it wide, children spilled in as if called by a bell only their happiness could hear. The reading room opened with less ceremony than Amara had imagined and more joy. Someone lent a mat. Someone else brought a painting of a boat that always looked as if it were about to leave but never did. The youngest children crowded around the picture books. Older ones gravitated to folktales and the battered science primers. Amara set rules. Wash hands, turn pages gently, return the book you pick, and then promptly broke them by pressing an extra story into the pockets of a boy whose eyes hungry read every line. Musa arrived late, grease on his forearms from helping install heavier silk fencing. He stood in the doorway and took in the scene. The blue frame, the bodies folded into positions of attention and ease, Amara on a wooden stool reading aloud, her voice rising and falling like the creek on a good day. He felt his chest stretch to make room for the new thing he was feeling. Pride braided with awe, braided with love so intense it almost hurt. After the story hour, after the children had been shooed home with promises for tomorrow, after the mat was shaken and the books stacked, the headman and the liaison stepped into the doorway together. 2 elders followed, then Waterwatch. The blue door made witnesses of them all. Papers were spread on the shelf that would soon be shelf full of books, but tonight was a table. The clause, now a full community benefit and safeguard agreement, had been redrafted in the week since the brown rain, each paragraph thicker with teeth. Let it be written, the headman said, smiling because he had always wanted to say that line in a way that mattered. And let it be done. Thumbprints and signatures followed. The liaison's pen scratched precisely. The headman used a stamp with a satisfying thunk. Elders pressed inked thumbs, deliberate. Musa's hand shook just a little, but his name came clean. When the last page was signed, the liaison closed the folder with a care that read as respect, not fear. We go need hold one another to dis, he said simply. Una hold we. We go hold una. Someone had brought a bag of ground nuts. Someone else poured pollo into clean cups. They drank to the creek, to the children, to the blue door that had righteously doubled as a desk for deliberation. Amara gave a small speech, voice steady, about reading as a second kind of farming. You plant words in Pekin head, dem grow sense. Laughter, applause, a brush of eyes that were pleased to be watered. Later, after the important people left and the lamp's circle tightened around just 2, Amara and Musa sat on the floor again, backs to the door. The moment asked for tenderness and they gave it. His fingers threaded with hers. Her head found his shoulder as if there had always been a groove there. He kissed her temple, then her mouth, a kiss like signing your name to something you will honor with the rest of your life. It deepened, grew warm, and they guided it carefully, respectfully, until it sat glowing in their chest like a coal in clay. I never think pen and plank go meet like this, he whispered, voice low, almost awed. Agreement and door. We make both, she said, smiling against his throat. We go keep both. They talked long about practicalities, the reading schedule, repair of an uncooperative hinge, a roster for water testing with other youth. They let their shoulders touch without apology, hands resting on knees, palms open. Before he left, he stood and held her hands between his, eyes searching her face in the lamplight. "You make me brave," he said. "You make me steady," she answered. Outside, the village sighed into sleep. The creek, still a little shy from its recent humiliation, whispered. The blue door, satisfied, kept its watch. Rumors grew like mushrooms after rain, quick, pale, not always edible. First came whispers that someone had cut a silt fence at night to make the company look bad. Then a different whisper, that someone from the company had staged the damage to justify heavier machinery. Then the one that stung, that a certain youth had been seen near the slope after dark, phone light in hand, eyes bright with ambition to be hero or saboteur. Amara heard it at the pump. She turned slow, filled her bucket and said nothing. Anger rose and settled like sediment. By afternoon, the rumor had acquired Musa's name. Alhaji, uneasy, came to the blue door at dusk, hat in hand. "Dem to talk nonsense," he blurted before she could speak. "But you know how mouth is sweet. I nor see Musa do nothing. I swear." She nodded, grateful and tired. "Truth nor de need shouting," she said. "But sometimes you for lift am so ear fit here." She set the bucket down and went to find her beloved. She discovered him where she always found him when the day was too much, at the creek, testing. The numbers were steady again. The turbidity had fallen into acceptable lines. He looked up, caught the set of her mouth and knew. "Dem don start?" he asked. She told him. He closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them clear. "We go answer with light," he said as if stating a recipe. "Open meeting. Show readings. Show timetable. If I da for slope, na because I da measure or I da sleep with painkiller because back da pain me from carrying straw." They walked to the palaver hut hand in hand. The headman, who had already heard the whispers, called the rumor into the open like a stray dog and tied it to a post. "We nor go let shade spoil work," he said. "If you get evidence, bring am. If you get hearsay, keep am for your pot." The liaison surprised some by arriving early, wearing the expression of a man tired of the same old story. He produced a logbook of night shifts and who held keys to the slope after hours. The site engineer from Bo spoke again, eyes frank. "I check fence at 6 a.m. every day. 2 mornings back we find section loose. Maybe goat. Maybe prank. Maybe wind. We tie him back. End of story." Musa rose, not defensive but transparent. He laid the water log on the table, each entry in his careful hand. "Stayed nights?" "Yes, 2, both during the brown rain recorded." "Near the fence at midnight?" "No. He had curfews and a mother who would skin him with her eyes if he broke them. He passed his phone for anyone to scroll." The headman did, chuckling softly at the selfie with the reagent kit. "Dis one nor fit saboteur," he said. "Dis one na Pekin way like his river." And he's laughed. The rumor-faced shrank. But it left behind a residue, proof that success would bring attention that wasn't always kind. After the meeting, Amara and Musa walked under a sky warming with stars. He felt a heaviness not even her fingers could lift right away. "I go be honest," he said, voice stripped of flourish. "At first I shame, then I vex. Now I tired. Sometimes being good not work." She stopped him with a hand on his chest. "Then rest small," she said, leaning up to kiss him softly once, then again longer, letting her mouth say what words could not. "I see you. I know. I choose you again." The kiss deepened until his breath steadied, until the tightness in his jaw unclenched. When they eased apart, his forehead dropped to hers and he laughed, a small, helpless, saved laugh. They stood a long minute like that, the lamp behind the blue door pouring a square of gold onto the dust. "Tomorrow," she said, "we host a story on slander. Folktale about the feather pillow. You scatter, you gather, you realize you nor fit gather all. Pekin dem go learn early." He grinned, almost himself again. "Teach am. I go set fence posts deeper. Both to help." The night accepted this plan with a cooler breeze. The creek, amused, kept its counsel. The rumor, deprived of oxygen, withered. Their tenderness did not. 2 days later, Truth arrived with a sheepish face and a sack of nails. A contractor from out of town, twitchy, always selling something, confessed to testing security, to make a case for additional billable hours. The site engineer's jaw went tight, the liaison's pen clicked twice and then lay still. The contractor was dismissed, the incident logged, a public note made under the silk cotton tree. Musa's name was explicitly cleared, not because he had demanded it, but because the headman insisted the same loudness used for rumor be used for reparation. "Name's not Calabash," the old grandmother said, wagging a finger. If he crack even if you gum am ego leak water. So nor put am for floor. Laughter loosened the morning. With the cloud lifted, Musa returned to building. The door needed a small porch, the rains had taught them that. He and Pa Lemon framed it in a day, set corrugated zinc at an angle that lent the reading room a jaunty tilt. Amara organized a schedule of older students to help the younger ones sound out stubborn words. She also led a feather pillow lesson that had the whole room cackling as little ones tried to gather feathers scattered by an auntie with too much delight in mischief. See, she said. Word get wings. Nor release if you nor sure. The company, chastened and eager to keep the new agreement's teeth from biting, announced a revised road plan that skirted the edge of the village instead of bisecting it. The change would keep the blue door safe from dust and rumble. It also meant a few cashew trees would be felled. The committee negotiated compensation in saplings and a community planting day. The word, together, began to appear in sentences that had previously featured we and una as opposing teams. Amara marked planting day in her ledger and doodled vines around it. Musa marked the creek monitoring app with a tiny blue dot to commemorate road reroute, victory of sense. That night, under the lamp, their conversation flowed smoother than it had in weeks. Relief, like water, sought the low places in them and filled them up. Their tenderness that evening carried laughter. He kissed the paint fleck on her knuckle, she kissed the scar on his wrist earned from a plank that had fought back. They pressed closer, not to test their line but to draw near within it, honoring the intimacy that grows out of shared labor and threat faced together. His fingertips traced the slope of her shoulder through fabric. Her breath deepened, then they stood and swayed, a dance with no music but breath. When they sat again, quiet as prayer, the lamp hummed approval. Sometimes I think, Musa said softly, we nor just fight company. We fight the part of our own heart's way like shortcut. Money sweet. Ease sweet. But quick sweet fit sour. Slow sweet last. She smiled in the half-light. Not why we chew groundnut nor swallow whole. They grinned, then lapsed into a companionable silence broken by distant drums. A neighbor's wedding had spilled joy into the road. Amara's eyes sparked. Tomorrow after planting we go dance small, she teased. His reply was a bow. If teacher permit. The next day delivered more than dancing. During planting, someone noticed that the rerouted road cut closer than ideal to a widow's front step. In the old script, she would have been told to accept it as sacrifice. In the new one, the crew paused, fetched the plan, and redrew the curve with a string in the dust. The widow's house remained unbothered. The cashews came down, yes, but small hands placed new saplings with a solemnity that made the loss washable. The creek watched, pleased. Night found Amara and Musa among the wedding crowd, their movements shy at first, then sure. His palm at her waist, her hand at his shoulder, a circle of neighbors clapping time. Their eyes spoke across inches, you, still you, always you. The dance swirled into a slow song, and they stood close, breathing the spice of jollof and the clean of rain-scrubbed air. The aunties pretended to look away but smiled. The stars, always nosy, approved. When they parted at the blue door, neither wanted to leave the evening, but both loved the restraint that preserved something brighter for the days to come. Good night, he said, voice low with everything it carried. Good morning, future, she answered, playful and true. Harvest came early for groundnuts and late for gossip. The valley, patched with plots like a quilt sewn by many hands, lifted bowls to be blessed. The festival of first fruits, revived after years of neglect, took its place under the silk cotton tree with a table long as a riverbank. Cassava, peppers, smoked fish, honey in recycled jars, palm wine in calabashes, groundnuts roasted to storytelling crunch. The reading room contributed something new, a small display where children had written the names of each food in careful letters, complete with drawings that made the peppers look like they were laughing. Amara wore a head tie the same blue as the door and a dress her mother had saved from her own youth, white with tiny cornflower dots. Musa wore a clean shirt and pride, which fit him well. He had spent the morning fastening a string of paper pennants above the reading room porch. They fluttered like colorful birds astonished to see so many people reading outside. At noon, the headman spoke blessings. The oldest grandmother sang. Then the floor opened, as floors do not actually open but to stories. Children recited riddles. A boy, small and serious, read a passage about a tortoise who won by being himself. The crowd cheered like he'd scored a goal. A girl stood and, voice trembling, read a new poem she'd written to the creek. You carry sky on your back / and my laughter in your mouth. Amara clapped until her palms stung, tears bright as fruit. The company sent plates and sensibly stayed at the edge, stamping their thumb on raffle tickets for woven baskets. The site engineer approached shyly with a sapling in a bag. "For the reading room," he said. "Shade later." Musa shook his hand without grudge. The liaison, learning, asked if the company could fund a few more books as part of the agreement's education clause. Amara nodded gravely and then grinned when he slipped her a catalog with glossy pages as if it were contraband. Afternoon turned soft. Drums found the frequency that loosened shoulders. Musa and Amara stepped into the dance ring again, this time less shy. He spun her once. She laughed, a sound that seemed to surprise even her. When the beat slowed, they drew close, the crowd around them becoming a kind of curtain. He studied her face as if reading a favorite paragraph. She fixed his collar while pretending not to blush. Their kiss in the alley behind the blue door was unhurried and grateful, steeped like tea. It promised more life together, not more heat now, both of which they wanted, both of which they would preserve and deserve. They returned to find the children staging a spontaneous play about the brown rain. 2 boys as clouds, 1 girl as the creek with a blue scarf, another child wagging a finger as site engineer. The audience roared when the engineer promised to answer his wife's phone if he ignored his own. Laughter cleansed memory's bruise. As dusk stretched the tree's shadow long, Amara slipped away with Musa to the creek. The water carried the sky like the poem said. They threw a handful of groundnuts upstream and made a wish. "What you ask?" he asked. "Courage that does not need rage," she said, smiling. "And one day a sign over the door with our names so small only we know they there." He nodded, pulling her hand to his chest. "I ask for same, plus, permission to save bride price without the world rushing us." Her breath caught, then loosened into joy. She watched his face in the slow light, saw no jest there, only an intention steady as the tree they stood under. "Small, small," she whispered, eyes bright. "We go gather. We go build." They sealed the vow with a kiss that felt like writing their names in wet sand and then pressing the sand between boards to make a brick. It held. It would hold. The festival ended with lanterns opening like pockets of sunrise along the path. The blue door glowed. The creek approved. The valley, for once, slept without bracing. Harvest settled into hunger season's careful arithmetic. The agreement's clinic stipend had bought medicine for coughs, which was good because Musa's father's got worse before it got better. One morning he fell, a soft collapse that scared laughter out of everyone the way sudden fear does. They carried him to the clinic. The agreement kept open after hours. The nurse listened, prescribed rest, wrapped the instructions in fussing that sounded like scolding and love. Musa wanted to quit everything for a week. Training, monitoring, even door building, to sit beside his father's bed and hold the air in place. Pasori, stubborn even horizontal, swatted the idea away with a palm thin as paper. "You go do your work. I go do my own, breathe," he said, which made the nurse laugh and then cry. Amara stepped in with the kind of help that never announces itself. She organized the reading room as a site for health lessons. A visiting midwife showed children how soap lathers carry away the dirt you cannot see. An elder taught a song for hand-washing that became annoyingly catchy. Musa's little sisters learned to measure their father's breaths with a watch the company had given each trainee. They reported numbers like nurses, chins high. At the creek, readings held steady. A dry spell left the bank cracked like old paint. They adjusted, logging carefully. Musa met with youth monitors from the next village and taught them the testing grammar, handing over kits like graduation. He came home at dusk, tired to gentleness. The Blue Doors porch had become a bench for confessions and jokes. He sat and let both wash him. Amara poured pollo into a cup and held it out. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, current jumping. "You running yourself like machine weigh nor get oil," she said softly. He nodded, too tired to argue. She shifted close and slid her hand behind his neck, thumb working slow circles at the base of his skull. He closed his eyes, the world narrowed to her palm. The intimacy wasn't heat, it was repair. He exhaled long, then turned his head enough to kiss her wrist, then the inside of her elbow, small acknowledgments that this too was necessary. She leaned in and kissed him, once then twice, longer, breathing with him until his breath remembered its right tempo. When they pulled apart, they shared the pollo, the cup passing like a sentence between them. "I nor when you trade your future for being hero today," she said. "We go plan your rest like meeting." He smiled, rolling the idea in his mouth. "Put am for ledger," he teased. She did. She drew a box labeled rest in big letters, then a tiny bed with a snoring stick figure. He laughed so hard a neighbor peeped in to see who had come with jokes. The next day Musa took the rest seriously, training in the morning, nap in the afternoon, story hour at dusk. He lay beneath the ceiling fan and dreamed of water running clear over smooth stones. When he woke, his father's cough had eased. Balance, Pa Sori croaked, wagging a finger. You learn. At story hour, Amara read a tale about a fisherman who thought he could net the moon. The children protested, foolish, in unison. She nodded, then asked quiet what the fisherman had been really trying to catch. Light, a little girl said. Hope, a boy corrected. Both, Amara declared, eyes flicking to Musa. After, with the room empty but for the two of them, Musa drew her into a slow sway to a song only they could hear. Their lips met, the kiss full of breath and balance, the kind you carry like a talisman into days that ask too much. He whispered against her mouth, bride price small small, and she nodded, eyes shining, small small but sure. They stepped onto the porch to find the sky full of bats like folded letters. Somewhere a motorbike coughed. Somewhere else a baby cried and then stopped. The creek, even in the dark, held its line. They were tired, yes, but also durable. Love, like water, learned the shape of what it loved and held it gently, relentlessly, until the shape remembered itself. The valley woke pink, then gold. News came on the morning wind. The company would shift the main operation farther uphill to a drier ridge, preserving the creek's buffer beyond even the agreement's demand. The site engineer had argued and won, backed by data logged by village youth and a liaison now converted to the gospel of not fouling one's own drink. The headman's messenger ran door to door, grinning, holding up the letter like a trophy. Dem say una water na heritage, he crowed. Dem say una sense save dem money long run. Celebration took shape without planning, as all good ones do. Women pounded cassava with extra sass. Men carried chairs to the silk cotton shade. Children drew a blue river on the road with chalk borrowed from the reading room, looping it around stones like a game. Amara brought out the catalog the liaison had given her and let the children pick 2 new books by vote. They chose, unanimously, a story about a girl who built a library from scraps and a book of birds with real names and pictures. Musa, giddy and pretending not to be, finished a sign he had been carving in hidden minutes. He stained it, wiped, stained again, careful as a ceremony. When the crowd gathered at the blue door, he cleared his throat. We get one more thing, he said, suddenly shy. He held up the sign, the lamplight reading room. Below it, smaller, the creek's name. Smaller still, so small only 2 people gasped, were the initials A and M, carved like a secret knot. The cheer rose like a flock. Someone started a call-and-response chant. The site engineer, bashful, cut a ribbon with scissors notarized by anti-approval. The room filled, books passed hand to hand as if they were bowls of soup. The air smelled like paper and palm oil and the clean sweat of happy people. When the crowd thinned to a hum, Musa tugged Amara toward the creek. The water ran clear, proud of itself. He had no speech prepared, only a feeling so steady it turned words into stones he could step on without falling. He took her hands. We begin, he said. Nor everything today. But we begin. She cocked her head, the sunlight turning her earrings into bright commas. Begin what? He swallowed. Bravery for him was action with voice, not voice alone. He reached into his pocket and produced a small bracelet of braided blue thread, the same she'd worn at the first class meeting. He had woven it last night with his sisters, laughing when the knot misbehaved. I nor get gold, he said, voice low and sure. I get plan and back way go work and name way I go keep clean. If you say yes, I go save bride price small small, we go meet elders, we go set date when sensei time ripe. You go be my wife. The world narrowed to her face and widened to the sky all at once. Tears came fast and unashamed, washing her smile into something that would be memory's favorite story to tell. Yes, she said, the word clear as water over stones. Yes, Musa. Yes. He slipped the thread around her wrist. She tied it herself as tradition allowed, hands steady. They kissed, not as children pretending at futures, but as 2 people who had negotiated with the world and found room to build something inside it anyway. It was a kiss full of covenant and laughter, a vow that tasted like pollo and paper and rain remembered. They stopped before the aunties could cough, leaning their foreheads together while the creek hummed a tune it must have learned from them. Back under the silk cotton tree, the headman blessed them with words half official, half grandfather. The oldest grandmother ululated until a hen jumped and then laughed at herself. Parents hugged them in the way that lifts and sets down like the final stroke on a well-written name. The company liaison, to his credit, shook Musa's hand and said, May your river run clear, which was in this place the best benediction a person could give. Evening laid a red shawl on the hills. The blue door glowed behind them like a horizon they could touch. They lit the kerosene lamp even though the sky had not yet darkened, because some lights are about meaning, not need. Children read until their mothers called them by full names. Waterwatch stopped by to drop a donation of field guides. The sign, the lamplight reading room, caught moths and hope in its aura. When the last visitor left, when the lamp sighed and the door clicked shut, Musa and Amara stood in the soft dark and listened to their future breathing, steady, mortal, miraculous. "Tomorrow," she said. "Together," he answered. The creak, not given to applause, nevertheless made a small, approving sound. A single bubble, a quiet clap, before it carried the stars on its back through the warm, watchful night.